Welcome to On Our Minds. I'm Dr. Brenda Wilson.
And Dr. Russ Witcher.
And we are two journalism professors here at Tennessee Tech. On this podcast, we sit down with other faculty and talk academics, personal interests, and teaching experiences. On Our Minds today, we're talking with Jesse Roberts, assistant professor in the computer science department here at Tennessee Tech. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Thank you for being on. So you are in the computer science in the engineering college, but you are involved in an interesting project using your computer skills to preserve the Cherokee language.
Yeah.
How did you get interested in that topic?
So I have had a long-standing interest in languages in general, and I'm from East Tennessee, so I was aware of Cherokee history. Specifically, I'm from areas like Monroe County, where one of the primary areas is Tellico Plains, and the word Tellico is a Cherokee word that's been anglicized a bit. So most of the place names are. So I grew up very aware of Cherokee influence, and as I studied the CS side of how transformer models, which is what makes things like ChatGPT work, right? So under the hood, there are types of transformers, which is a type of neural architecture. So they're neural networks, but it's a specialization of a specialization kind of thing. And that's what drives these models. So as I learned about those and as I came to understand them, I was really interested in what was going on with using natural language processing, which is like the big heading that language models like ChatGPT,
large language models, we hear that
right,
term a lot.
LLM. Large language models, right? All of that fits underneath this natural language processing heading, right? So as I was understanding more and more of how these large language models worked, there was research that applied more classical natural language processing techniques to Irish, Guelga. So I was reading about this, how they were using these techniques to preserve and teach Irish, and I'm understanding what the new technology, because there's been you may not be aware, but ChatGPT just came out, right? So there's been this revolution
it's
of
all new,
right this absolute revolution in what AI can do in the language space, and so that's yet to be explored. We haven't really figured out how can we use this new technology to do this preservation. We know that computers have a role to play. We've known that for a while. And so I started looking for what's being done in this Cherokee space. That's something that is important to me as growing up in those areas, having family connections to the Cherokee, broadly speaking, not any sort of tribal affiliation or anything like that, and historical, and being interested, caring about it. So I wanted to know what was being done there, and I found that most of the work applying the more classical techniques like NLP, like what was being done with Irish, had been done by a fellow at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So I reached out to him, and he said, "I'm really glad you reached out. That's Ben Frey." And he said, "I've been thinking about the same things. How do we leverage these new pieces of technology that are immensely capable but are understudied? How do we leverage that to prevent the erosion of Cherokee?" And so that really got it started, right? That's what led to us working on it more intentionally.
Is his background in computer science as well? Or
No,
is
he's a linguist.
Linguist, okay.
He's a linguist.
That's interesting.
He is a member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, and he's classically trained in Germanics. So he's a classical Germanist and is a member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee.
Had you already studied the Irish language before this project?
Some, yeah, some.
Okay.
Of course, AI is so new, but I guess to muddy the waters a little bit more, explain AGI.
AGI is, so there's AI, artificial intelligence. AGI is an acronym for artificial general intelligence. AGI is a theoretical construct, so we don't have AGI. We don't even know what AGI looks like.
Oh.
So
that's coming down the road then, right?
Right. Well,
working on it still.
Well, people claim to be working on it. But
Oh.
the issue is kind of like shooting at a target. You don't know where the target's at.
Oh.
So we don't know what AGI is. We don't know what it could do, and we don't know what it would take to get there.
It's a concept right now.
Yeah, it's a concept, right? So all that is sort of the buzzword to mean, and I'm going to quote unquote true intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had a computer that people would deem truly intelligent, then that would be an AGI, right?
Yeah.
So because there winds up with an asterisk by it, right? So whatever a computer can do today, we're not impressed with, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if you go back to the 1950s, a computer that's able to tell you the right path to Nashville, that's magic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But today, that's boring.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, of
So
course.
AI in its current state, if whatever the computer can do, people say, well, that's not intelligence. Even though 30 years ago people would have said, oh, well, that's probably intelligent,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Being able to read a document, summarize it, that's intelligence.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Being able to beat any chess master, that's intelligence. But we have that now, and people have a sliding window that keeps getting pushed out. Well, that's not real intelligence. That's not real intelligence. So then AGI just becomes whatever someone would finally say once we have it is real intelligence.
Mhm.
And so basically what people are saying when they say AGI is just around the corner, they're saying that they believe that there's going to be a threshold where eventually the AI is going to be good enough that people say, okay, we agree now. This is
Yeah.
actually an intelligent system that's doing
Yeah.
something like us,
Uh-huh.
like a human
Mhm.
would.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's no precise definition of it. It's a thing that people believe is out there. They believe that once the models are so capable that you truly cannot tell the difference between them and a human, that we will stop moving that bar, right?
Right.
And once we have an AI that's that capable and the bar stops moving, then people will finally say, okay, this is a truly intelligent system, not just a computer.
And some people
Yeah.
think it's just a year or two away.
Some do. I think that
Nice.
is. I think that's a bad call to say that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Not from our perspective, but
Mhm.
from those that would do that,
Mhm.
because we have computer scientists have a long history of saying those sort of things.
Yeah. Okay.
So you go back to the 1950s, and a fellow named Frank Rosenblatt, who invented the first version of the neural network, he said, because he was working with the Navy, he came up with a system that could do some automated things using neural networks, first neural networks, called the perceptron. And Frank made this bad statement about, in just a few years, the models will be as intelligent as humans.
Right.
They were
It's
not.
been a while,
They
yeah.
They were not. And that same mistake got repeated again about 30 years later.
Mhm.
And of course they were not. So
So 2
I
years may or may not be true.
yeah, I advocate that we shouldn't be making those kind of claims because we don't really know what it takes. It could be that
Mhm.
it could be we're 95% the way there, but the difference between a car that goes 210 miles per hour and a car that goes 220, it has to be twice as powerful.
Huh.
Because of the air density at those
Yeah.
speeds. So you're having so much more energy necessary to move the car that much faster, even though that's a very small percent increase in speed.
Mhm.
It may be that the last 5% of that intelligence requires a very very large gain in power that we're not foreseeing.
Mhm.
And so they're expecting it to be linear. There's no reason it will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have a couple of degrees in electrical engineering from Tennessee Tech, and then
Yeah.
now your PhD is in computer science. ChatGPT and AI is new to most of us. How did your, I guess, academic path evolve from electrical engineering to computer science, and when did you get interested in AI?
That's a good question. So electrical engineering historically actually has common ancestry with computer science and AI. So you go back, Claude Shannon was one of the fathers of electrical engineering, of modern electrical engineering. And he was also one of the fathers of computer science.
Mhm.
You kind of take an offshoot from there, and the techniques and knowledge that are used in electrical engineering for doing things like, well, signal analysis, right? So processing the audio and things like that's going on right now. All of that comes from information theory from Claude Shannon, but it's the same ideas that get used in the models that we use for AI, for machine learning. A lot of the same ideas. And so you're learning sort of parallel ideas applied very differently, right? And so as I got really far into, well, really far in, I got my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. I started working as an electrical engineer, and then started a master's degree in electrical engineering. And as I got into it, I'm working on these solar cells and trying to figure out how to get solar cells to operate more efficiently. And at the time, one of the best techniques was to use a neural network, right? And so I got interested in how that worked. And I started working to combine neural networks with other techniques and figure out what the right mixture was and how to get that to work. So I wound up being more interested in the method to make them more efficient than I was in the solar cell itself. Right. So I finished the master's degree and did the research regarding the efficiency of the solar cell. But ultimately, what I came away with was a lot of interest in these machine learning techniques, and that's what sort of made me realize that's what I really actually want to study more about and do research on these techniques.
I see your other title is AI strategy consultant. So
yeah. Well, that's something that I enjoy doing, and I've had the opportunity to do as volunteer and also do consulting and pay consulting is help look for ways where AI can be of help or maybe would be more work to involve than is worth. So
Okay, nice.
Well, I was reading about how common it is for a language to die, and I was really shocked at how often that happens. I mean, so the Cherokee language, or at least the part that you're focusing on, it's in danger of disappearing too, perhaps.
Yeah, the entire Cherokee language is considered endangered by UNESCO, right? So, so an endangered language, this is not the technical definition, but a good way to think about it is an endangered language is one that has stopped being propagated by the normal process. The normal process of language propagation would be, a child is born, they hear the language in the home, they learn to mimic that, and that's how they acquire the language. When that stops happening, then the language is sort of entering a critical phase, right? Because now, for whatever reason, the parents are speaking a different language at home. And when that happens, that's the language the child learns. And usually the reasons are socioeconomic, right? So a lot of times that looks like, so like in the Congo, for instance, right now, the language of the Congo traditionally would be Chiluba, but the language that is now being spoken is French because, so France colonized the Congo. All of the universities, the common language is French. All of the businesses, the common language is French. So if you're going to get an education, if you're going to have a job, you need to know French. So parents recognize the value of knowing French, and so they prioritize speaking French. And so then they don't try to teach their children Chiluba because ultimately their kids are going to have to know French to get a job. So it's sort of this natural process of socioeconomic pressure that leads to someone deciding, well, that's not the language we're going to focus on speaking. Right. And so then it becomes sort of a cultural artifact. And it's still around enough at that point that people usually pick it up, right? Because they're the older generation, your grandparents will still, use it as their primary language, things like that. So kids will still pick it up. But over time, as that aging process happens, the people who use it as their primary language goes away and French becomes the language. So, and once that happens, you have no children learning it in the home. So that would be your first language speakers, right? L1 speakers. And then you have a process where as those age out, you lose the group of the population that have that intuitive understanding of it. And then everyone else's understanding is academic or filtered through another language, right? So they may know Chiluba, but they know it by way of French. Right? And so that's a very different thing. It's like I know some Spanish, but I know it by way of English, which is not really knowing the Spanish. Right? So that's the process that has already played out now in Cherokee, and most of the people who have that first language knowledge of Cherokee are well above the age of 60. And so we are entering that phase where pretty soon we're going to have no first language speakers of specifically Eastern Cherokee. But the issue is also playing out in Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma and the Kitawa Band.
Yeah, I read that
I did too. Yeah,
there was even a number,
there's like
140 people.
140, yeah, roughly. Yeah.
yeah, they're getting it down to the
Wow.
to the person.
Yeah.
So are you're focusing on the language closer to this area? But I was reading that there are 2 out of 3 dialects still exist, and one has become extinct. That may or may not be true. Correct me, but are you getting as specific as the dialect, or are you just keeping it general at this point?
To some degree, yes. So we don't necessarily have enough data to be able to learn exactly one dialect without also learning some of the other. So probably whatever model is developed in finality will have some of both dialects. We are focusing on Eastern Band because Ben is a member of the Eastern Band. I'm from East Tennessee, which and my family have place connections to the Eastern Band. So that's just the connections we have, right? So we're focusing on that, and that is a dialect that is different from, say, Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, typically what would be spoken there. So in a way, yes.
Yes. Okay.
But not with an intention of excluding a dialect, and not with an intention of eroding the dialect-specific nuances. So sort of by necessity, by connection, we are focusing on Eastern Band, and also by practicality, we will have to not exclusively focus on Eastern Band. Yes and no.
Just where the research takes you, and where the project takes you. Yeah. So, I mean, is there promise with AI to even bring back ones that have become extinct languages? Like, can you revive some of that from materials that are printed in those, or not printed, but exist in those? Or is it more of the oral tradition has kind of caused it to be harder to preserve?
Maybe it might be, but I would say I don't know what that would look like.
Right.
So our focus is on not losing that linguistic ability, that first language linguistic ability. And this is the target, not what we're doing immediately, right? So our goal would be that we could train a language model on the conversations of first language speakers to learn how they use the language and store it in a model, right? Just like English is stored in ChatGPT, right? You can think of ChatGPT as being a reservoir of the English language. So if you could create a similar reservoir for Cherokee, then someone could come to it, they could interact with it, and the response that you got from it, now this is not something we can do now, but what we hope to do, right? The response from it would be a first language speaker's response, or an approximation of it.
Okay.
Right? That's what we're shooting
That's
for.
the preservation process.
That's the preservation.
Okay.
Yeah. I would think that this would be so important to our culture that the government would be supporting that with money. Are they? I mean, is it well-funded?
There are grants for language preservation, and there is a grant at, I want to say it's Western Carolina. There's a grant that is intended to document and preserve Cherokee. So there are grants through the National Endowment for the Humanities that's partnered with the NSF for doing language preservation. So this particular project is not yet funded by anything like that. That's where we hope to go with it, though.
Yeah.
There are other grant opportunities too, through like the Schmidt Foundation and different things like that.
Yeah. Well, good. It's good to hear.
Yeah. When I think AI and linguistics, I think Duolingo and those sorts of programs. Is that sort of? Are you developing anything close to that yet, or this is early stages of just building the model?
This is earlier stages than that.
Yeah.
So Duolingo, I think there could be something good there.
Down the road.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. I think that's where,
because you're practicing with a computer. You're practicing with.
The only thing is there. So a lot of their research and a lot of their focus is on actually the learner interaction, where we definitely want to support people in learning Cherokee, but also the focus is right now the preservation of it, which Duolingo would be less focused on or interested in.
Okay.
And you've studied Irish. Is there because of the settlement of the area, does that somehow overlap with some of your research in Cherokee, or
I don't
are
know
they
if it
borrowing
does.
things? Okay,
No, I don't
from
think
each
so.
other.
I don't think so. That's a good
Not the
question, though.
original, sure.
Yeah. I see that while you were at Vanderbilt working on your doctorate, that you won the Doctoral Discovery Award. I assume that was related to your dissertation?
Yeah, yes, that was. So that was an award that they gave in recognition of research and to support publication, support travel, things like that, in recognition of the work being done. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that. That
Yeah,
was great.
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
In researching this, we find a tie to our academic discipline, but the first Native American newspaper was
Yeah,
published
I
in
was
the Cherokee
Just thinking
language.
about that.
So are you?
Sequoia.
Yes. So is that helpful? Those publications that they did. Is that helpful in being able to, I don't know, pinpoint some accuracy of the usage of the language?
Definitely the. So would be the Cherokee Star. Is that the newspaper you're
Phoenix,
talking
I
about?
think.
The
wasn't it?
Phoenix, Cherokee
Phoenix,
Phoenix.
uh-huh.
Yeah, with Elias Boudinot, right, as the editor in chief of that one, I think.
He may have
Maybe.
been.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if I'm not badly mistaken, they didn't publish it in English and Cherokee. I think it was only Cherokee.
Cherokee.
Right?
Okay.
Only Cherokee.
And so one of
That's
the
difficult.
challenges
Mhm.
would be that we don't have the English immediate.
To
So
compare.
so we definitely could use it, but that becomes an expensive process because now we have to pay someone to do all of that
to translation. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
And so there is data out there like that, and there was a Cherokee radio network that used to broadcast things in the Cherokee language overlaid with the English on top of it. But the thing about that is now, okay, the research problem is really complex because you have to split the Cherokee from the English, do voice to text, and then line up those audio files, because the thing is that Cherokee is a very different language from English, and so they have very, very dense words. So like
Yes.
you can say something highly complex like I'm going to go and get a liquid object at a distance in a very, very short word of about 6 syllables.
They were born journalists then, right? Saying a lot with fewer words.
Brevity, yeah.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it'd be without Senegi C. Right, that's go and get a liquid object at a distance.
Wow.
That is
So it's a very, very short word in
concise.
comparison to what it's conveying, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about, all right, someone has taken the time to overlay Cherokee and English. It's not 1-to-1.
No.
So how do you line that up? How do you say this goes with this?
Wow.
So there are a lot of data sources that we could hope to use in the future, like the Cherokee Phoenix or the Cherokee Radio Network. But it raises new problems, good problems, problems that would be fun to solve, but hard ones too.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you'll be in this field of research for quite a while?
I think it'll take a while to address this problem altogether. So yeah, I think this is something I'll be involved with for a good time.
Good.
And I guess your type of research can kind of pave the path for other language preservation if you develop a way that the computer can help simplify it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's the hope is that Cherokee is a language that we could learn from and apply these techniques to, but then what we learn from it hopefully could be applied to Chickasaw or any other language out there.
Yeah. I like to look at CVs too, just to see what faculty do off campus.
Yeah.
And something that stood out to me was that you're the founding advisor to the Rock Climbing Club. How did that happen?
So I've been rock climbing for, I suppose, something like 10 years.
Oh wow.
So when the new gym was built, the Burn Fitness complex over here, it included a rock climbing gym, and there were several students that were very interested in rock climbing and things like that, and they really wanted to see competitions. They really wanted to see a lot of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told them, if they put together a group that I would sort of help on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we did, and they made a good student organization. They've done a lot of they've done community stuff. They've done cleanup days at Cummins Falls. They've done cleanup days at Monterey Crag, which people may not know, but there's a rock climbing area, an outdoor rock climbing area just in Monterey. Two, actually, B-Rock and Monterey Crag.
Right.
So they've done cleanup days at both of those. They do trips to Chattanooga to do bouldering competitions. They've held bouldering competitions here at this gym and invited students from UT and Vanderbilt. And so they've hosted several competitions. So they're an involved group. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think it'd be pretty easy to find places to climb.
Yeah.
It can be, and it's interesting. It's a shifting landscape because there used to be an area called Sheep's Bluff that students would go to and rock climb a lot. And Sheep's Bluff then actually changed hands. And suddenly it was not okay to climb in Sheep's Bluff north of the road. You could climb south of the road, but not north of the road. So,
privately owned, I guess.
Yeah, and so as land ownership changes, things like that change. So B-Rock became not allowed to be climbed for many, many years after being allowed for many years. And same thing happened with Monterey Crag. So now B-Rock is owned by the city of Monterey, and so is Monterey Crag. So it's no longer an issue.
Right. And Cummins Falls is a state park.
Cummins Falls is a state park. There's not really any good rock climbing in Cummins Falls. That was just service that they did there.
Oh, okay.
Actually, so the Southern Coalition of Rock Climbers is the reason that Monterey owns B-Rock. They bought it and gave it to Monterey.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
It's a beautiful sport. I'm sure you see a lot of nice terrain.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Scenery. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on. Your project is really interesting. So,
yeah, it is. Yes. It really is.
Absolutely.
I know you've talked to a lot of different media on it. So, yeah, it's an interesting project.
Yeah.
And so you've been here at Tech just for a year now as a full-time?
I was here for 3 years as a lecturer before I was a assistant professor. So I was a lecturer in electrical engineering, and now I'm an assistant professor in computer science.
Right. Well, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, welcome back. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
The United States of America has some of the best institutions of higher education in the world. People come from countries all over the world to study here. We'd like to think the faculty are a big part of what makes our colleges and universities so attractive. Most academics spend their entire careers studying their chosen field and its many facets, while others may focus on one particular part of a topic and go in depth to learn all they can about the specifics. You may ask, why? Why would someone devote their life to studying a certain field? On this podcast, we're asking that too. We're also just having a good time getting to know the interesting people on campus we wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to chat with. We're talking with our colleagues about their chosen fields of study, how they got interested in the subject, and what they've discovered about it so far. We hope you find our discussions as interesting as we find our fellow academics. Some topics we discuss overlap the general education courses all students getting a college degree take, while other topics are in subjects students take in upper-level courses for their major. And some topics are even more specific than that. You may not study them unless you're getting an advanced degree. So listen closely. What we talk about may be on the quiz.